We talked about their vision.
Yo, this is a lie, dude. She's just lying to the American public. Quickly going to move on to the Kamala Harris interview that's taking place on MSNBC with Stephanie Ruhle after Stephanie Ruhle came out and said she supports
Trump,
people voting
left us
for Kamala Harris on Bill Maher.
The worst economy since the Great Depression when you look at, for example, the employment numbers.
It was during COVID.
I also must urge you to subscribe at the top of the hour because there's a 3-minute ad break coming for you right now.
He lost manufacturing jobs by most people's estimates, at least 200,000. He lost manufacturing plants. Ask the auto workers how he lost auto plants. We have grown over 20 new auto plants. He has an agenda. Let's just deal with it right now going forward, not to mention what happened in the past. He has an agenda that would include making it more difficult for workers to earn overtime, an agenda that would include cutting off access to small business loans for small businesses, an agenda that includes
This is live on MSNBC. When the interview launches, we'll watch it from the start.
20% more on everyday necessities and an estimated $4,000 more a year on those everyday necessities, to the point that top economists in our country, from Nobel laureates to people at Moody's and Goldman Sachs, have compared my plan with his and said my plan would grow the economy, his would shrink the economy.
I love how stupid this level of argumentation is. It was stupid when Brandon was saying it, and it's still stupid when Kamala was saying it.
And invite a recession by the middle of next year.
Hell
so
yeah,
the
Goldman
facts
Sachs,
remain,
baby. Let's go.
that Donald Trump has a history of taking care of very rich people. And I'm not mad at anybody for being rich, but they should pay their fair share. But tax cuts for the billionaires and the top corporations in our country, and then not really paying much attention to middle-class families. My perspective on the economy is when you grow the middle class, America's economy is stronger. And there's empirical evidence to prove my point correct.
Then let me ask you about taxes, because lots of people will say, I don't like Donald Trump, but he cut my taxes. He didn't just cut corporate taxes, he cut individual taxes. Now, that expires next year, and there's some people confused saying, I don't know what's going to happen next year. Under a Harris administration, at what income level should someone expect their taxes to go up? And that state and local tax deduction that's currently capped and matters to a lot of people in blue states, are you going to lift that cap?
So, first of all, when it relates to anybody making less than $400,000 a year, your taxes will not go up. Your taxes will not go up. And in fact, under my plan, taxes...
Wait, so that means you're going to make the Trump tax cuts permanent? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Including $6,000 a year for young couples for the first year of their...
Oh my God, she's going to make the Trump tax cuts that are supposed to sunset. She's going to make them permanent? Like, what the
Is that because during the first year of a young couple, of a person's child's life, they're going to need help buying a crib, buying a car seat. And we all benefit when they're actually able to do what they naturally want to do to take care of their child.
And expanding that child tax credit, or you mentioned housing before, giving that extra money for a first home. If you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to raise...
It's not new, but she's never said it within the context of, like, Trump tax cuts, the tax cuts sunsetting.
And billionaires pay their fair share. That's just it. It's about paying their fair share. I am not mad at anyone for achieving success, but everyone should pay their fair share, and it is not right that the teachers and the firefighters that I meet every day across our country are paying a higher tax than the richest people in our country.
Bill Gates just said it this week. If he was in charge of taxes, he would have paid more. But how do you find that line to make sure corporations are paying their fair share, but they're not leaving our country?
Well, listen, I work with a lot of CEOs. I have spent a lot of time with CEOs, and I'm going to tell you that the business leaders who are actually part of the engine of America's economy agree that people should pay their fair share. They also agree that when we look at a plan such as mine that is about investing in the middle class, investing in new industries, investing in bringing down costs, invest in entrepreneurs like small businesses, that the overall economy is stronger and everyone benefits. Part of my plan for the economy is investing in new industries in a way that we have active partnership with the private sector. I've worked with the private sector my entire career. Even as vice president, working with some of the biggest banks and biggest tech companies to increase by billions of dollars the money going into community banks to increase access to capital for small businesses. Why do those biggest corporations and CEOs do that? Because they know those kinds of investments, like in our small businesses, in startups and entrepreneurs, actually strengthens America's economy and everyone benefits. So this is not about bilking anybody, but it just...
Bro, Stephanie Rule is eating this.
That we create
it's dog shit and she's eating
for
it.
everyone to grow wealth. I believe that it is not sufficient, and it should not be our goal to just make sure everyone is working. That should be the baseline. That should be a given. And let's create an economy where people have the ability to buy a home, to start a business, to take a nice vacation from time to time, right?
For people who want to buy a home, yes, getting a $25,000 kicker would be great. But it's not just affording a home. We don't have enough in this country.
You're absolutely right.
And one of the main problems are regulations and rules, strict rules at a local level. How does the federal government cut through all that red tape and get down to, I don't know, the suburbs of Pittsburgh and say, we're going to have to build some affordable housing here? How do you connect the two?
So you're absolutely right. So across our country, people rightly are concerned about the cost of housing. So it's home ownership, to your point. We need more supply. That is, without any question, part of the solution. Creating more supply under my plan includes creating tax incentives to work with the private sector and home builders. Part of my goal and the plan would be to create 3 million new housing units for rent and for ownership by the end of my first term. It includes also what we must do to cut red tape. You're absolutely right. It takes far too long, and there's too much bureaucracy associated with home building. And I say that as a devout public servant. I know that we have to reduce the red tape and speed up what we need to do around building. And that is going to require working from the federal level with state and local governments. And it's going to be different in different places, depending on the needs of that community, the needs of that local government, that municipality, but working in consultation and coordination, and also around incentives that we can create. For example, some of the work is going to be through what we do in terms of giving benefits and assistance to state and local governments around transit dollars, and looking holistically at the connection between that and housing, and looking holistically at the incentives we in the federal government can create for local and state governments.
Okay, I like that.
To actually engage in planning in a holistic manner that includes prioritizing.
She's still way too much of a urbanist yimby for my liking.
Coming up,
I
much
like
more
it.
of Stephanie Rule's exclusive interview with Vice President Kamala Harris.
I mean, I like the way she communicated that last aspect, because obviously public transit is directly tied. It's hand in hand with housing. If you increase, for example, housing density and change the readily available housing supply to like higher density urban housing, you're going to need to improve public transit. So like things of that nature are pretty solid. And it's not just like the most annoying urbanist yimbys that are aware of these realities. Having said that, however, obviously Kamala Harris, I have no confidence in. So I do believe she's probably hitting that from the NIMBY perspective. Or not NIMBY, sorry, YIMBY perspective. You guys know, for me, it's like, make the federal government compete, okay? We need deflation on housing. We need the housing bubble to pop. So what that needs, in an effort to do that, you need to create an alternative, a government subsidized alternative, not government subsidies of the public-private partnership, but like directly a federal jobs program that actually constructs these housing units all around the country, state by state, if you would like to do so. And then that housing development project should also be socialized housing, social housing, public housing. This is the way that the government competes with the private marketplace and still utilizes the capitalist market measures in an effort to ensure that there is some kind of sustainability in terms of pricing. Okay. Of course, Kamala Harris will never do that. That's not going to happen. And her alternative to the current unsustainable model that we have that is created so much homelessness is simply deregulation and tax incentives for big real estate developers. I personally consider this an awful way to try and solve a problem. I don't think this will solve the problem at all. They will sit on those tax incentives. They will not complete those housing projects. And all of this will go to waste inevitably.
Business that matters a lot to this town.
Yeah.
U.S. Steel.
Yes.
Right? When you think Pennsylvania, when you think Pittsburgh, you got the Liberty Bell in Philly, and you got U.S. Steel in Pittsburgh.
That's right.
A Japanese company wants to buy them. You are opposed to this idea. Many people are. But if the deal doesn't go through, they have said people could lose jobs, they could close mills, they could leave the state of Pennsylvania. I mean, that is like moving the Liberty Bell to Newark. So which is more important?
It's most important that we...
Also, whenever she's talking about housing, how the do you not bring up rent caps? What happened?
In manufacturing of steel by American workers.
What happened? I'll tell you what happened. She dropped it.
Which includes, again, back to
I'll tell
the
you what
point
she's not dropping, the price of rent.
about the economy overall. Investing in new industries. There is not a new industry.
This is why I'm voting for Joe Biden.
I can imagine.
Mr. I'm going to decrease rent. I'm going to put a rent cap at $55 a month. That's why. That's why I'm writing in Biden's name.
In an American company, manufacturing that steel for those new industries is going to be critically important, not only in terms of our economy, but also in the context of national security. Most people now realize if we didn't before the pandemic, and the strain on supply chains and an over-reliance on foreign manufacturing, that we have to be intentional about U.S.-based manufacturing. And of the products that we have to prioritize, steel is one of them. And that's always going to be my priority.
Steel workers matter in this country. Unions matter.
Yes.
In 2016, Donald Trump connected with unions. He saw them.
Will increase
there was an
supply
emotional
of housing,
connection.
not lower rent prices. I think it will lower rent prices a little bit. It's an inevitability. I just don't even think that they will actually increase the supply of housing, though. I don't believe it. And they will not punish it like the PPP loans. Ain't nobody got punished for that. Okay, so many people engaged in fraud, and virtually zero people got punished for it. Just like all of these tax cuts that you'll get in order to attempt to build a house will get mucked up in the process. This is something that I know very well as a California resident. Okay, this is how it goes in California.
Investing in new industries and working actively with the private sector to grow our economy.
But I'm asking because there's this idea we want something more from her. What is it?
Well, here's the thing, that back to your point about previous election cycles, Donald Trump made a whole lot of promises that he did not meet, and one would argue broke. Look at Lordstown. He said he was going to...
Don't sell your homes.
Yeah, don't sell your homes. And what happened? It shut down. Outsourcing under Donald Trump. His policies that are about putting, you know, tens to hundreds of % tariffs.
John Deere.
Yes. Yes. So part of the challenge, and I don't disagree that it's a challenge, got to earn the vote of everybody, is reminding people of fact. Regardless of what somebody says in a small rally somewhere. And I think that's really important. And that's part of what I'm doing in this campaign, is to remind people, just like here in Pittsburgh, of the reality of who has stood with union labor, who stands for American manufacturing, who stands for American jobs.
Can I ask you about tariffs? Because you just mentioned it. It's not just with one company. Donald Trump's sort of big idea is this broad-based tariffs across the board. You and many others have said that would be not only disastrous, but it would be a direct tax on the American consumer.
It would be a sales tax on the American people. The independent economists have already measured this by the sales tax of doing a 20% tariffs on all imports that he has described would be a 20% sales tax, in essence, on basic necessities for the average American worker, average American family, totaling almost $4,000 a year. That is no small matter. Here in Pittsburgh, when I'm talking to a group of folks who work here, who live here, and when they hear it might be $4,000 more a year for them, look, people can't afford that.
But tariffs aren't unique to President Trump. President Biden has tariffs in place. He's actually looking to potentially implement more. Where do you come out on? Is there a good tariff, a bad tariff?
Well, part of it is you don't just throw around the idea of just tariffs across the board, and that's part of the problem with Donald Trump. Frankly, I'm going to, and I say this in all sincerity, he's just not very serious about how he thinks about some of these issues. And one must be serious.
He's like, we're going to do good tariffs. He's doing bad tariffs is such a funny Trumpian-ass line.
Some talking point ending in an exclamation at a political rally, but actually putting the thought into what will be the return on the investment, what will be the economic impact on everyday people. And when you look at my plans, you will see what those benefits will be. $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. You know what that means? Then you're creating the ability of that working person to build intergenerational wealth.
For homeowners,
doing
baby.
the work of a $6,000 child tax credit, doing the work of a $50,000 tax deduction for first-time small businesses, startups, because right now...
That's a real plan.
It's a real plan, because right now, and again, it's about paying attention to the detail and being serious about it. I'm serious about my enthusiasm and for small businesses and my belief in what they will do as part of America's economic engine.
On Friday,
No, so looking at the fact that right now the tax deduction is $5,000.
Does 25K make a difference in the U.S. housing market? I mean, it's good for a lot of people that are right around the corner. Probably not in the long run, because it will just make houses $25,000 more expensive.
The innovation and the ambition of the ideas that are present and among us, but need the fuel to be able to actually achieve the goal.
His plan is not serious when you lay it out like that, but a serious problem over the last few years has been inflation. Luckily, it's cooling, but prices are still high.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You said you want to take this on by going after those who engage in price gouging.
Yeah.
But as somebody who supports free markets, who's a capitalist, how do you go after price gouging without implementing price controls? Because once we get in this zone, people start to get worried and they say, I don't know what she stands for.
So just to be very frank, I am never going to apologize for going after companies and corporations that take advantage of the desperation of the American people. And as Attorney General, I saw this happen. In the midst of an emergency, whether it be an extreme weather event or even the pandemic, we saw it, where those few companies, not the majority, not most, but those few companies that would take advantage of the desperation of people and jack up prices. Yeah, I'm going to go after them. Yes, I'm going to go after them. And that is part of a much more comprehensive plan on what we can do to bring down the cost of living, including housing, including the everyday needs of the American people.
Coming up, more of Stephanie Ruhle's interview with Vice President Kamala Harris, where she addresses Trump's claim.
Yeah, she's glazing super hard. Okay, Stephanie Ruhle is glazing Kamala. One argument I've seen against the notion that price will go up 25K is that sellers don't know or care whether the buyer is going to get the tax credit. All they know is the down payment and the mortgage money, and not everyone will qualify for the full amount, if any. Yeah, that doesn't matter. What matters is they see the $25,000 in tax credit and they go, oh, there's opportunity for us to increase the price. The way to actually lower the price is by creating more housing units. How you do that matters. Kamala Harris wants to do that through deregulation, which I don't like. She wants to do that by offering tax incentives to real estate developers, which I also do not like. Okay, I think that the private-public partnership is a demonstrable failure in the state of California. Kamala Harris is a California Democrat. It is, I guess, expected for her to behave in a California Democrat-style way, which is usually lip service and people voting for really progressive housing market reform, only to get nothing in return, like never actually get said housing market reform implemented because of that very same public-private partnership that we were talking about. It's always the private developers that just kind of go, thanks for the tax cuts. We just couldn't finish this project. Sorry. We really wanted to. We just couldn't. And now we're going to be using the tax cuts and the unfinished projects as a way to lower our taxable burden even further. After all, this is just eating away at our pockets. I don't know. It's just one way that I'm thinking. Why would a developer purposely not finish a project? I don't know. Literally ask any... Dude, great question, dog. I don't know. Why are there so many empty plots in the state of California that were supposed to be building like homeless shelters and shit, okay? Or additional housing units. I don't know. That's a great question. That's why I said they do it all the time. Don't ask me. I don't know. Do you think seriously regulations won't slow down the building of houses? Regulations have an absolute stranglehold on progress, like the middle of the hour ad break has on unsubscribed viewers. Putting on my lib hopium hat could having a California Dems POTUS at least be a good stepping stone in destigmatizing progressive posturing nationally? No, because she's not even doing progressive posturing nationally. What megaphonics? When, guys, what out of Kamala Harris's policies, with some exceptions, is like a genuinely progressive policy? We're talking about like 90s Republican Party ass attitudes in terms of like building new housing units by giving tax cuts to real estate developers and beyond that. You're not destigmatizing California progressivism. You're not, because this is not California progressivism. Also, this is the worst aspects of California progressivism if you're thinking about like Gavin Newsom. And that's gross and awful anyway. It's just pure neoliberalism. Before this interview, MSNBC had a panel where someone was arguing that Harris needs to pander more to the left than to the Nikki Haley Republicans who will vote for Republicans. Damn. Who was that? That's crazy. I worked in the home building industry. Every project is done by a separate LLC set up just for that project, and they contract the construction to the home building company. That way they can just shutter the LLC and walk away if the project goes wrong or if it won't have the right profits. Every matter of like legislation, every part of our legislative agenda revolves around tax cuts for corporations and deregulation, or the opportunity economy.
Okay,
anyway,
one of the issues is an economic one. And no one is eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio, and I'm glad not to be talking about that. But there are people there that are stressed, that feel that they're at capacity. Communities around the country that have legal immigration, many have said, we're at capacity. And many feel like the government has said to them, well, adapt, sit down, be quiet. This is how it is. What would a Harris administration do for those communities who've taken in many, many legal immigrants but are at capacity?
Well, first of all, we do have a broken immigration system, and it needs to be fixed. And if we take a step back, months ago, some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress,
Springfield, Ohio,
proposed a border security bill that would have put 1,500 new border agents.
Please look at any of these Rust Belt states, man.
Border agents who are there right now working around the clock. Would have put more money into stemming the flow of fentanyl, which is killing Americans around our country and devastating communities. Would have put more resources into our ability to prosecute transnational criminal organizations, which in my career I've prosecuted. Donald Trump got word of the bill, realized it was going to fix a problem he wanted to run on, and told him to kill the bill, don't put it up for a vote. He killed a bill that would have actually been a solution because he wants to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And that's part of what needs to be addressed. And my pledge is that when elected president, if the American people will have me, I will bring that bill back and I will sign it into law. And we need a comprehensive plan that includes what we need to do to fortify not only our border, but deal with the fact that we also need to create pathways for people to earn citizenship.
And I want to just ask you about a little job and a big job.
Okay.
The first one, just a fact check. Okay. Because your opponent
there is
almost
no little
every
job.
day. Okay,
there's no such thing as a little job.
Okay, fair. Because your opponent almost every day seems to be talking about this. So I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working at a McDonald's? Yes or no? That's it.
I have.
Okay. Now the other job. But
it was not a small job. Like, I did the fries. I mean, yes.
Okay, for a small period of time. But then let me ask you about a big job.
But to your point, if you don't mind, before you get to the big job, there's a part of the reason I even talk about having worked at McDonald's is because there are people who work at McDonald's in our country who are trying to raise a family. I worked there as a student. I was a kid who worked there trying to raise families and pay rent on that. And I think part of the difference between me and my opponent includes our perspective on the needs of the American people and what our responsibility then is to meet those needs.
Then to the big job. You have laid out policy in great detail.
Yeah.
But the economy is an unpredictable beast. And you are running for a job that takes extraordinary instinct and guts.
Yeah.
What's the last time you had to make a gut decision? This here is very prescribed. It's very controlled.
Yeah. Probably the biggest gut decision I've made most recently is to choose my running mate. Yeah. There were lots of good, incredible candidates. And ultimately, that came down to a gut decision.
I know I'm out of time, but then I just want to ask you a question from my gut.
Okay.
Because today we're talking about we're talking about the economy.
Yeah.
And people don't think often about reproductive rights being an economic issue, but it is. A woman's ability to plan her future, her education, her life. Today, and in the last few days, Donald Trump keeps talking about it and how in overturning Roe v. Wade, he helped women. He protected women. He says they're miserable today, they're poorer today, they're more vulnerable today. He said he will be the protector of women if elected. Can you respond to that?
So Donald Trump is also the person who said women should be punished for exercising a decision that they rightly should be able to make about their own body and their future. So I think we would all agree that as a result of that perspective that he has about women, he also then chose 3 members of the United States Supreme Court who did as he intended, undid the protections of Roe v. Wade, and now in state after state, you see laws being passed that do punish
In an
women.
alternative universe, Bernie Sanders gets this level of writing and glazing for his policies, and America is like universally on board with Medicare for all and many other issues that Bernie spoke to. And basically, we bring about the New Deal era for the Democratic Party, and the Democrats end up beefing up labor unions, and going in the opposite direction of the grand bargain or the third way, or neoliberalism, and they just win so hard. And the momentum of like openly socialist or social democratic politicians is so great that there's an entirely new youth wing of the Democratic movement, and and that's where we're at. Except that's not where we're at. Wake up, we're in the part
interview, and I thought you pressed her on really important stuff. It was also, I just thought the whole thing was refreshingly substantive. This was you can say I don't like that policy or I do like that policy, but it really was about like, here, the earth we live in, the kinds of decisions you're going to make, and it wasn't pie in the sky stuff. So very, very well done job. Let me just start by saying that.
Okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and soak in those compliments, so we don't have to talk about anything else. But I think what you're actually complimenting is that it was a normal interview, Chris. That's actually what it was. It was a normal interview. It was a person running to be the president of the United States, and for 25 minutes, we talked about their vision, and we talked about policy. And I think you just said it right there. At the end of the day, it's A-okay if you don't like her policies, right? She made it very clear. If you make over $400 grand a year, next year, when the individual tax cuts expire, she's going to raise your taxes. So if you're someone who just votes on that, well, then you know what you're doing. You don't want to vote for her. And I think that it's just that we're so...
this is a lie, dude. She's just lying to the American public. The highest tax bracket in this country are not going to actually see a tax hike. The only tax hike that will happen when the tax cuts expire are for everything but the top margin. Okay? The corporate tax rate is permanent. The corporate tax rate cut was permanent. And so was the tax cut for the top margin. Okay? Everything beyond that, the under 400, their taxes are actually slated to increase. This is not necessarily a bad thing. She wants to raise wealthy taxes, though. No, he's not going to do that. Okay? One, I have yet to hear an actual proposal on how that is going to happen beyond some of the aspects of how things are taxed. But also, I don't think you're going to pay your fair share of taxes. That's such a funny argument to make because I'm in the highest income bracket, dumbass. And also, in terms of my like real taxes that I pay, my effective tax rate, due to the way that my revenue stream is structured, is literally higher than anyone else in my tax bracket because I live in California and I'm pure income. But having said that, however, given that I'm in the highest tax bracket, no, it's not going to actually increase. Okay? And I don't have an issue with increasing that. I'm actually, if you understand the words that I'm saying, the words that are coming out of my mouth, I'm mad because she's not going to be able to do that. Oh my God. Dumb mother. I'm over here being like, yo, they're not increasing. They're not actually going to be able to successfully increase the tax, the taxable income of the highest earners in this country. And there is no like valid plan in play for that. And this guy's like, yeah, you're going to pay your fair share, brother.
This weird situation where both major party candidates kind of got to say what they're going to do to bring prices down, even though what everyone's reacting to is an issue that is a little bit in the past. You see what I'm saying? Like, so she's got the price gouging thing, which I thought was a good answer, but in some ways, no one's really talking about the real thing.
It is a little bit in the past. And listen, lots of people are angry that grocery stores have made so much money and they shouldn't. And I'm not defending grocery stores, but we should remember.
This is what's really annoying about this process, by the way. No matter what, like, given the tax bracket I'm in, Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't change my circumstances, okay? It does not change my circumstances at all. I am technically arguing against my best interest when I argue for the Democrats to actually do progressive legislation, because I understand that it is not about your short-term financial relief or additional, additional tax burdens being lifted. Okay. I think that there is a longer project that we must keep in mind in terms of building a normal society, a healthy society, okay? It's stupid. It's dumb.
An issue that has the American people angry, and the American people aren't thinking about what you just mentioned, which is,
I gotta say, all in all, that was an excellent interview. Hasan just wishes it was him interviewing her. No, I don't. I don't wish to interview Kamala Harris at all. Tim Walz, maybe. But definitely, I don't give a shit about interviewing Kamala Harris at all. It's just never going to happen. I'm far too adversarial for Kamala Harris's team to ever allow that to happen. Does it not just keep scaling up? I would have thought there's more brackets for like CEO type roles above you. Wealth in this country for CEO types above me in terms of real income come from stock options. And no, I am in the top tax bracket. I love you, Hasan, but you're sometimes annoyingly adversarial. Yeah, sorry, the Mex Blanco 555. I'm annoyingly adversarial because I don't think that this administration is communicating enough of a progressive message, nor are they genuinely interested in communicating a progressive message at all. You're sometimes a moron and it pisses us off. What? What the f is going on with chat right now? What is happening? Did you consider anything that the chatter, not you? Oh, love you, Hasan, but sometimes the political takes that make up 90% of your content I hate. But other than that, heart. There's just so much going on with the awful instincts of the Kamala Harris campaign, which still is not going to. I just want to repeat this for all the liberals, okay?